Good evening, friends. I just got off a phone call with a friend of mine who had planned on traveling to Kenya for Christmas holidays. And we've been chatting back and forth. We had planned on meeting in Kisumu and all that. And he's just told me that he can't travel. I'm very sad for him, especially for his mom, who was really looking forward to seeing him with the grandkids. He's got two kids, just like me. And it's turning out that he can't. And unfortunately, his is not something isolated. There are many Africans who live out here who have the absolute desire to spend time with relatives and family, especially around Christmas, but they can't. So there's some things that they will not tell you back in Africa that I'm about to explain to you in about 10 minutes. And I'm going to use my friend's example just to explain why there's a group of diasporan Africans who have citizenships or green cards or legal paperwork. They can travel based on that. But they are not able to travel to see families as often as some of us do. So I'm hoping this video will show you some of the things we will not tell you when you're back home to allow you to at least develop some sense of empathy for the folks who really are not able to travel. So come with me and let's talk. This is One Day Friends. I'm still in Long Beach, as you know. I still have a couple more days in jail. Some people don't like that, but you know, it is what it is. So anyway, if you enjoy our content, make sure you subscribe because your subscription really takes our work much further. So just check. There are millions of people who watch us but have not subscribed yet. So just check and subscribe. And I also do a lot to do with construction. I help returnees plan on moving back to Africa. So if you want to chat about things like that, you need help with finding designers, architects, land agents, interior designers, things like that, my number is right here. I'm happy to respond as soon as possible. Sometimes it takes a little while, but yes, I'm happy to respond whenever you reach out. So be sure to reach out if you need help. So let's talk about this specific group of Africans who really desire to spend holidays with their family, but they can't. Even though they have legal paperwork, many of them are actually US citizens, they're really not able to return. So I'm going to walk you through the entire process so that you understand, first of all, how much of a sacrifice it is for many people to travel to Africa. Well, anyway, friends, so the truth is, one of the main barriers when it comes to traveling to see families in Africa is the cost. And many of us just can't afford to do that. Besides issues with work, there are lots of people who do the kinds of work where it's very hard to get time off, especially people who are in healthcare, those who are doctors, physician assistants, nurses. This is not a fun time for them to travel because for whatever reason, I think Americans wait to fall sick around this time. And so hospitals and these care facilities don't like giving medical practitioners time off around this time. So yes, there are friends who will not be able to travel because of their schedules. And then people with young kids who still have kids in school, it's really challenging. Like my kids only get like maybe about 2 weeks around December. That can be really tight. So people with young kids also have issues with their timing and schedule. But one of the top reasons is just the cost of traveling to Kenya for holiday. So let me break down what my friend was looking at, which got him to decide he is not going to travel. So number one, this is a family of four, mom, dad, and two kids. On tickets alone, he was looking at anywhere between $6,000 and $10,000, easily more. Again, this can vary depending on what city you're flying from. Like flights that fly out of DFW in Texas are way more expensive than flights that fly out of Houston or out of LAX. And it's even 10 times worse if these folks live in some of these small towns that don't have any decent airport. So they have to connect like multiple times to get to the nearest big airport. It gets way more expensive. And so the cost of the tickets alone from the US to Nairobi, you're looking at easily 10K or even more. Now, there's some ways to mitigate some of that, either if you're using your miles that you accumulate, or and when you're buying economy tickets, buying off-peak, buying months in advance, and especially avoiding things like just having no preference. Like personally, I don't choose seats. I pay for tickets and then we'll deal with the seats when I'm boarding. So when you avoid some of those little things, it can help mitigate that. But the cost of traveling for folks, you're looking at anywhere from 6 to 10,000 easily, or even more. Then the second thing, again, there are lots of Kenyans who don't have Kenyan passports, so they have to pay for the ETA. Now, ETA usually is about $30 plus processing. You're looking at maybe $40. So this is one of the minor costs because it will be like about 120 for 4 people. One of the minor costs. And then typically when we travel home, we buy stuff both for ourselves and for the people we are going to visit. It's just African. When you're going to see somebody, you gotta bring gifts. I don't do that as much because I'm home way more often than the average person. But just shopping alone, you ask the Kenyans how much they spend on shopping. It can be really pricey, especially for people for whom shopping is a fun experience. For me, I shop because I have no choice. You're looking at anywhere between $1,000 and up to $5,000 easily, sometimes even more, depending on what you're taking. Because I've seen some people who take this opportunity to shop for things they need for their houses. So yes, shopping can be expensive. And then when they land in Nairobi, there are people who choose to spend a few days in Nairobi. Personally, I only stay in Nairobi for as long as I have to, especially when I need to meet clients. But if I don't have to meet a client, I land on the international side, and then within an hour or so, I move to the domestic side. I fly straight to Kisumu. I don't even leave the airport. If you're staying in Nairobi for a couple of days, you're looking at another B&B, could cost you between $10,000 to $50,000 per day. And that I think translates to about maybe $500 or so. And then transportation, which would be the minor thing. Uber is actually fairly inexpensive in Kenya compared to Uber in the US. In fact, Uber from my house in Long Beach to LAX, which is about 25 minutes, cost me around $70. In Kenya, I don't think you'll spend that much for such kind of a distance. And then you're looking at now the local flights, because many of us live away from Nairobi. So if you're flying to Kisumu, you're looking at 4 tickets, easily $700. Again, give or take, depending on the airline you take and the airport you're flying from. Just so you know, it's actually cheaper to fly out of Wilson Airport, because there you have what we call matatu. Those ones are relatively inexpensive. But if you're flying KQ, that's probably one of the top ones. And I've flown all those options. Personally, I don't see any difference because you all land at the same time. There's really no observable difference. But the difference in terms of cost between flying KQ and flying the chakla that you'll find in Wilson is significant. So local tickets, you're looking at around maybe $700, family of 4. And then when you land in Kisumu, you're looking at, let's say you're going to stay for 3 weeks. You don't have a car. You're going to be renting a car. Car rental, average 6,000 Kenyan shillings a day, all the way up to, 20 plus. If you rent a big car, obviously it'll cost you more because they don't give you those big cars without driver. So you're paying for the driver, you're paying for the car, and then you're paying for gas. And gas is not cheap in Kenya. So car rental, you're looking at probably anywhere between $1,200 to $1,700. And then now you're looking at food and entertainment. Depending on what you do, some people like going out a lot, visiting relatives. That can also add up in terms of cost. And so with that, you're also looking at another between $1,000 and $4,000 easily, even more. And again, this will depend on the choices you make when you grow up. But there's spending associated with just moving back and forth, visiting people and doing stuff. When you're mostly in the village, not moving around that much, it's actually cheaper. But if you go home and you're busy visiting people and doing stuff, you're going to spend. Now, besides that, then you have what I call local issues. You'll get home and then things will happen. Like you arrive and maybe your mom is sick. You really have to take her to the hospital. Or something happens. There's some legitimate things that are going to pop up that will require you to spend money on. Things that would you not otherwise spend money on if you're not home. And then you also have issues that will arise because you are there. As a diasporan, when you're gone, and again, now I'm speaking as a villager. When diasporans come to the village, sometimes we can generate issues. When you go to church, suddenly there's a fundraiser. Or when you come home, suddenly problems will be found. that will require spending. And I'm not too bothered about that. But those things can easily add up. And so overall, you're looking at 3 weeks, $25,000. Now, trust me, there are Kenyans with serious money for whom that is absolutely nothing. I understand. But the average Kenyan doesn't spend that much money on an average month. In my world, I think maybe I know 2 people could spend that much money, but the rest of us, I cannot even begin to imagine spending that much money in less than a month. So $25,000 is about 3.2 million shillings in 3 weeks. Now, here's what I want you to think about. The average American, the median family income in America is about $83,000. And I'm talking about family income, not individual income. So essentially, if this is true for my friend, then he would be spending the amount that he makes in 4 months, he would be spending in 3 weeks. I mean, he looked at the math, it's just not adding up. There's no way this is adding. And by the way, as you're spending in Kenya when you travel for 3 weeks, here are some things that remain constant. Number one, your US obligations or your diaspora obligations are very much there. Your mortgage or your rent is waiting, your bills are waiting, and it's winter, you're paying for heating, you're paying for all that, blah, blah, blah. Your loans, cards, every obligation you have is still waiting to be taken care of. And then what makes it even worse is that for some people, even after making this level of a sacrifice, they get home and they still end up with the most crappy experience. Because then they get home and people are just piling on them left and right. It's just issues, so that home becomes such a terrible experience. So the question I ask, why would somebody want to spend the money they make in 4 months, in 3 weeks, only to go and end up with a bad experience? Now, most of us actually have a great experience when we come home. The majority of us, at least the ones that I know, we usually go home, have a fantastic time. But there's a small group of Africans that when they get to Africa, all they get is just they don't even get to enjoy the holiday. So there's only so much of that you can do, where you come home, you spend so much money, and then it's just problem after problem, it's just suffering. It just makes going home not worth it. And so these are the folks who, when they hear me sell the African dream, they're like, my version of the African dream is just pain and suffering. And I can't blame them. I cannot blame, because I know what that looks like. And so what I'm asking you today is that Christmas is coming up. People are coming. In fact, I've seen online folks have really started trooping back. Whatever you do, if you meet somebody who has traveled from someplace outside Africa, it doesn't matter whether they are born and raised in Africa or not, please give extra TLC, because I promise you, it's a huge sacrifice. And all we can do is to make it worth their while. Well, I hope that makes any sense. I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you. Bye.